Ho, 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 welcome to the stream. In this stream, I'm starting my brand new application, and I'm going to call it Giftex. It's short for Gift Exchange, and what that's going to be is a Secret Santa application. And I think what I'm going to do, hopefully YouTube doesn't flag the shit out of me for this, is play Christmas music as I work on this. I'm going to figure out how to set up OBS to do this. Let's see, Christmas. Spotify has some good playlists. Christmas classics, yes. Yes. Okay, that's playing into my headset. We'll see if we can get it on the stream. I don't know. I'll get it figured out for the next one. That would be hysterical, though. Just run Christmas music as I'm working on this. So this is Giftex in its current form. It's obviously super rough. I want to talk about my tech stack. So that was one of the hardest choices I had to make for this application. One of my primary goals was to learn something new. And I know that this application was going to need a database to obviously hold all the user-created information about wish lists and different gift exchange groups that they're joined to. And I did not want to go back to kind of like the legacy way of making a node server, connecting a Mongo database, writing all that Mongoose code. It was a pain for me traditionally. And it really turned me off from back-end development. So one of the technologies that I want to use with this is called Firebase, and I'm sure you're all probably familiar with it. It's a Google thing. It's a hosted database that hands you just a JavaScript library to interact with it. It's awesome. It's actually very easy to set up. It's very fast, and for my use case and how many users I'll probably have, it should be free because it does cost money as you scale up. But yeah, seriously, it's like 50,000 reads and writes a day. It's very generous on the free scale. So that's for the database portion. For the front-end framework, I really wanted to use Next.js. But unfortunately, getting Firebase integrated with Next. Before I really started this project and started this series, I wanted to make sure that the tech stack that I chose actually worked. And I tried using Next.js for the front end, and I wanted to use from the same company, Zeitz Now, for the hosting platform. The Zeit makes Next.js and they make Now. And so they pair very well together. But I had a very tough time getting Firebase to integrate with this. In development on my local machine, everything would work just fine. But as soon as you would push it to Now, everything would go to shit. And I think that's because Now does some really interesting things. Not Now specifically, but Next. It does some really interesting things as far as building your website. What it does, it is a website generator, and it server-side renders your website. So what happens is, imagine that you go to your index page. Usually, that would hit the server would run some code, generate HTML, and send it back to the user. But the way that Next and Now work together is that Next actually creates a Lambda function for every page on your website. So when you go to index index.html or the home page. It's actually hitting an AWS Lambda function that will run code that generates that page and then sends it back. And something about that does not work well with Firebase. Because locally, obviously, it's not using serverless functions. But once you push to production and actually build for now, that's when things go crazy. So I've spent a lot of time with some of the Zeit team members working through this, not only on Twitter, but also on their spectrum, and we still haven't reached a full solution. So with that being said, I wanted to get up and running regardless. So for the front-end framework, I picked something that I knew already, and that's Gatsby. Many of my sites are built with Gatsby. It's a static site generator. It doesn't do some of the fancy stuff that Next.js does as far as Lambda functions for each of your routes. But what Gatsby does do is it has a super rich plugin ecosystem that does really cool things like image scaling. That's probably my favorite thing. Just right out of the box, you can just hook it up and do image scaling, and it does that blur up effect that's super cool. It preloads related pages, so it feels very, very fast. And if I want to take advantage of Firebase's real-time database aspect, client-side Firebase is exactly what I want. You can't do server-rendered real-time database. That doesn't make any sense. So ideally, I can have everything update live on the client with Firebase, and I could do that in Gatsby just fine. So that's what I have the website up and running in now. And then what pairs very well with Gatsby for hosting is Netlify. And actually, let me open up. Let me open up my actual Gatsby site in Netlify. There we go. So I host a lot of my stuff on Netlify. Number one, because it's free, and number two, because it's great for static hosting. It has special features for Lambda functions. It's very easy to define environment variables for your builds, and it hooks directly up to Git. So you can do staging previews, deploy previews, branch previews, all sorts of stuff like that. So with that being said, my current stack is Gatsby, Netlify, and Firebase. And so I just want to catch you up on what I've done so far. Take a drink of water, man. Okay. So what I've done so far. Here's the current website. And let me just show you what it's actually doing. This homepage is actually loading users from the Firebase Firestore. So Firebase is an overarching service inside of Firebase. You have lots of different things that it can do. It can do authentication, a database, long-term storage, hosting, cloud functions, and machine learning. So I'm going to need authentication for this, as well as a database. And this is the Cloud Firestore. This is the real-time database. So what this Giftex thing is doing right now is it is reading from the database, just like a list of users that I have. Just first name and last name, nothing big. I just wanted to make sure it worked. So the page will load, and then dynamically on the client side, it will make that call to Firebase and populate these users. So great, we can do database reads. Another thing I did was, and forgive me, I have styled none of this, was I did some user authentication, registration, all sorts of stuff. So let's delete that user. Awesome. And what we're going to do is I'll show you how we can register a new user and log in and log out with that user. And it does work. So this is populated by default, which is great. I'm just going to do sign up. And when you sign up, it automatically logs you in. When there's a logged in user, my entire application knows about it because of React context, and this welcome message is shown. This is just an indicator to me that, hey, somebody's logged in. So I can also log out. You click the log out button and gone, there is no user, so the welcome message is not displayed. We can do login as well with that same user. Log in, and there you go. The application knows that I've been logged in. So with this being said, I have all the basic functionality except for writes to the database. I haven't done that yet, or listening real time, but that's no big deal. I've proved out that I can get the authentication working and database connection working in Gatsby plus Netlify. This means I can move forward actually making the app. Yo, Daniel Buchanan, what's up, man? How does that scale across multiple web services? You mean Firebase? Daniel was a former coworker of mine at Dell. Okay, so let me just review actually how I coded this, and we can start from there. I'll hop on. How does that scale across multiple web services? You see, it's great because that's actually abstracted from our level. Google just kind of handles that. So I'm not actually hosting Firebase myself. So based on the incoming traffic, I would assume Google scales up or down the API instances to handle reads and writes. So I'm going to pop into the Giftex repository, make sure everything's good and up to date. And installation always takes forever. Daniel, how's life, man? What's going on? So one of the reasons I started working on this application now is it needs to be ready probably around November timeframe so that any possible users can register and log in and get this going for the holiday season. And it kind of gives me like a lot of headroom to get all this done. All right, I'm just going to reload VS Code into the Giftex repository, and then we could start looking over the code of what I have written. Okay, so Gatsby config, nothing special at all. You'll notice there's nothing in here about Firebase. Firebase is all loaded on the client side. Now, what we are going to need to check out here is this utils. So this is the Firebase file. This is what you're going to want to import, or pieces of this is what you're going to want to import to use the different functionality. So specifically, I'm going to be using the Firestore and authentication. So all this does is imports Firebase as well as its authentication and Firestore methods, sets a configuration, and you can copy and paste this essentially directly out of the Firebase like project config, and then initializes the app. There's one special thing we have to do here. Gatsby runs this file at build time, and this is going to fail at build time on the server side because we don't have a window object. This Firebase JavaScript library is meant to be run on client side. So the workaround here is to just make sure that window is not undefined, meaning we do have a browser in place, and then we can go forward and do whatever we wanted to do. So initialize the application, set up auth, set up Firestore, and we export everything. So the overarching Firebase library, the app itself that we initialized, authentication, and Firestore. These are environment variables I set up with .env, with this .env file. That's something I can't be showing you guys. So then I get it into my application like so. I'll show the index page. No, I guess the users page. Okay, that's more complex. I'll start as simple as possible. Register. Yeah. So I bundled all the registration components under authentication. And here is the register component. So what do? We have two fields, email and password. And literally all we do is on submit on this form. We call our on submit function, and that calls our Firebase authentication method auth, and here's that object, and it calls create user with email and password. It's asynchronous. It comes back when it's done. It takes the user, which is destructured from the response, and sets it to the user context. So what I'm doing is holding an app level user context that wraps the entire application so that I know if somebody's logged in or not. So we'll look at context now. The provider for this context is just exposing the React state hooks. So it's user and set user. And that's what we're wrapping this in. And if you look at our layout, we're wrapping the entire. Hopefully that makes sense. Now we'll also go through the other authentication flows. So after registering with create user with email and password, we receive a user who is signed in and set the user context. Very similar situation for login. We have a form with email and password. When you sign in with email and password, you receive a user back, and we set the user in user context. Logout is just a button, and on click, it calls auth.signout, and then we clear the user. User context.set user blank sets it back to undefined. And those are all the authentication methods. Now on the index page, that's where we actually grab users from. This is just a collection in the database. So let me pop that open. Here's our database, and we have two collections, groups and users. So what this is doing is it's reading the users collection and looping through and displaying the first and last name of each user. So my state is going to hold users, and I have a function called getUsers that's run using the useEffect hook. UseEffect hook runs on mount and unmount. So we're going to call getUsers when the component mounts. It's going to use the Firestore object that we exported from our Firebase file. It's going to grab a collection called users, and it's going to run a .get. This is going to return a query snapshot. So essentially you're in like a query on the database with no argument. So it's going to get them all. And then you run through the query.docs, and that is each item that the query returned. We're going to map through them and return the ID plus the user data. And then we set that to state. So initially, this is nothing. This is an empty array. So when we map over users, we see nothing. But after this use effect finishes, users are populated, and we dump out their first name and their last name. And so that's why you're going to see on the home page that small delay, because this is asynchronous and occurring on client side. So now that I've spent 20 minutes talking about where we're at, let's actually try to get some work done. Now, I think what we're going to do is pop open the Gift Exchange repository and just make some issues for ourselves. All right, so what pages do we need? We need a groups page, like a page that shows all the groups that you're in. We need a create group page. And then we're going to do wish lists and all sorts of other stuff, but I think we'll work on that later. We'll make another issue. Something that we need to do is like create a random match situation where it'll take all the people in a group and spit out pairs. It's called a group matching method. Somewhere in here, we're going to need email. Or maybe we get real fancy and use Twilio. Wonder if you can do it for free. Pricing. Right? Just send them a text message like pay as you go. For real? What does get started for free? Yeah, but what does that mean? Here, I'm gonna pop my B right back on while I fill this out. Holy shit, their password is 14 characters? That's a new one. Okay, they sent me a verification email, and I'm confirmed. All right, cool. Oh, interesting. Now it's asking me all sorts of special customization questions. This is cool. Do you write code? Yes. Ooh, I like Node.js. Right, this is going to be server side. I have to make Lambda functions for this. My trial balance is $15. That's cool. I just wish they would let you send some stuff for free. Like I love, what do I use? Mailgun, because I can send this stuff for free. Features and pricing. Damn, this seems like a lot. 1,000 messages per day, $229 a month. I don't know, man. Yeah. I don't know. Just an idea. So going back to our repository, we've got 3 issues. Yes, we got to create a group page. Let's start there. Right? I'm going to completely forgo styling and just get like some pages down and make life easy. Let's see what other Secret Santas do. Ugh. I do all this crap. I'll do it. I'll do the research later. Okay, let's just build some pages here. What are we gonna do? This might work. Let's say we've got a group, and here we've got new. And this way, we can also have routes for, so this route's going to look something like this. I'm going to create a new group or a group, and then we could have like some ID, and that's how you can get to a specific group. That should be pretty cool. So the new group will be this is good for now. Get it saved and make sure I'm an idiot, so I need to run this locally. This is exactly why I need a new computer. Gatsby develop takes forever. Okay, almost done. Yeah, so right now I'm just trying to walk through the user flow. Okay, I'm going to sign up and then I'm going to want to create a group. All right, so yes, perfect. Okay, so just like any other page, we're going to want this to have a layout and all this stuff. Layout with meta components, and new group's going to be right there. And now we got to import those components. So let's import layout. And we need to import Meta, Facebook, and Twitter. Meta, Facebook, and Twitter. There we go. And now we should be able to go over here. Ah, perfect. Okay. So really, I think we can get rid of these users because our users are going to come from our like user table. They're going to have IDs already associated with them. Like, let's look at, because somewhere authentication, there's got to be like an API to be like get user by ID. Manage users. Get the currently signed in user. Hmm. Actually not, I'm not seeing anything right here. It only allows you to get the current user. Let's say Firebase authentication. Get user by ID. Yeah, see? I don't like this. I'm not seeing it. Firebase auth. Get other users. It's not possible. Why? The only way to do this is to save it once they're registered. Shit. I don't like that. Okay. Well, let's not worry about it for now. We can persist users in a different way. That's okay. So this is actually new group page. And then we can have a new group component. And the new group component will be the form that they have to fill out. This is going to be the form that users have to fill out in order to create a group. And so, what kind of information are they going to need? Let's see, there's definitely going to be a form here. So what kind of information do we need to capture about a group? We'll probably needs to have a name. What else does it need to have? Let's go to the database so we can work out this model. I think I already had something going here. Yeah. Yeah, so like a name and members should do. And here I'm referencing users in the database. That might be what we're going to need to do for the future. For right now, let's just make it real easy. Let's just make it a string. It'll make it an email address. We'll delete all these. All right, so right now, we have one group. With members and name. I think we used draw names last time. Yeah. Let's see. I'm going to pull up my email and see if we can grab my last year's draw names group. I think that's going to give us some guidance on what to do. Their email service is slow. Okay. It's being slow. That's cool. No worries. So all we need to do here is give it a name and add email. Okay, popping over to the form. How do they do it here? Draw names with, and it's literally just whatever. Okay, everybody needs email addresses. Yeah. So we can make this form kind of interesting where we can dynamically make multiple fields here. You know, kind of like how like to-dos are. So like here we've got all these different to-dos, and there's always one at the top, you know, empty. But then everything else you've entered is still there. We'll make it fancy. Again, no styles for now. I'm not worrying about it. Maybe for now we make emails a comma separated list and we just dump that in instead, just for the sake of simplicity. I will say this is one of the things I'm learning in programming. Choose the easiest path forward just to get your application up and running and make improvements as you go. It for me, I'll get stuck in the details and I need to keep moving. So little optimizations like this just help me do that. So we've got a name form and an emails form. Okay, cool. So we're going to need to use state here. And so we'll hold the name and set name. And we'll also hold the, should I call them members? And initially members start as null, or an empty array rather. All right, cool. And then on change, how do I do the register form? Yeah, given the event. Set name with event.target.value. And we should be able to do something very similar here, but with a little bit of fancier stuff. So instead of just calling set members, we're going to have to do two things. We're going to have to split. So this is going to be comma separated. We're going to have to split the list and remove any spacing. So it's going to be event.target.value .split on a comma. And we're going to have to do .map on each one. And strip it. So how do you do like a strip in JavaScript? Trim. Wait, for real? No, come on. Yeah, string.prototype.trim. All right, great. All right, that should do it. Let's get this in here and see what's going on. Put some logs in here so we can see what the hell's going on. All right, let's see. Cool. So originally they are starting at an empty string and an empty array. My group, and still an empty array. Let's get rid of this. We don't need these logs here. So I've got, yes, perfect. It is splitting and stripping just fine. Yep, awesome. And at this point, this is not actually a type of email. It's text. And let's make a separate function for this members change thing here, just because it's a little more complicated than the basic. This should still work just as well. But clean it up a little bit. That's weird. It makes an empty string at the end. We could probably fix that later. Filtering. I think it's just a dot filter. Not equal to null. Dot filter string. What do we got here? Let's just do filter. Creates a new array with all elements that pass the test. So let's just implement a filter on here. That just does member, right? So if it's true, I don't know if a empty string is true. Let's see. Looks like an empty string is true. I might be live. I do not know. I just had a drop in internet. Holy crap. Can anybody see or hear me? I think I'm live again. Wowee. Okay. Well, the filter worked. So now what we need to do is add an on submit on the form. Need to run an on submit on the form and event.prevent defaults and log on submit. Cool. It works. I literally have no idea what's going on with the stream, so I'm going to end it right here. Thanks for watching. I'll catch y'all in the next one.